The galaxy had long forgotten about humanity. They were nothing more than a footnote in history, a species that once burned brightly before vanishing into the void. The official records described them as ambitious but reckless, primitive yet relentless. They had challenged the great Selvar Dominion, a decision that had sealed their fate. It was said that Selvar exterminated them without mercy, wiping out their colonies, burning their homeworld, and leaving nothing but ashes behind. No ruins, no survivors, not even a derelict ship drifting in the void. Humanity had simply ceased to exist, and the galaxy moved on. But then, something impossible happened. A distress signal activated in the far reaches of uncharted space. It pulsed weakly at first, a whisper in the cosmic dark. Then it grew stronger, reaching out like a hand from the grave. The signal carried an ancient human encryption, one that no species had seen in over 1,000 years. At first, the galactic community dismissed it. A malfunction. A leftover transmission from a long-dead race. Then the experts analyzed the data. It wasn't just a distress beacon. It was a broadcast, and it carried a single message. We are coming. The moment the words were decrypted, a ripple of unease spread across the Galactic Council. Conversations turned into arguments. Disbelief turned into fear. The humans were extinct. They had been wiped out completely, hadn't they? The Krell Confederacy was the first to send a probe. It traveled to the coordinates of the signal, past dead stars and silent worlds. When it arrived, it found something the galaxy had never expected to see. A ship. It was unlike any human vessel recorded in history. It bore no markings, no signs of wear or decay. It was sleek, angular, made of an alloy no known technology could identify. The probe scanned it cautiously, searching for life signs. Then the ship moved. Not drifting, not shifting with inertia, moving with purpose. Before the probe could transmit a warning, the ship's hull opened like a mechanical iris. A pulse of energy surged forward, and the probe was gone. Not destroyed. Erased. The Krell Confederacy, horrified, tried to suppress the incident, but the damage was done. The signal had already spread. The message was already known. The universe had thought humanity was extinct. Now, they were back. And they were not the same. The Galactic Council convened an emergency session. The vast chamber, usually filled with the quiet murmurs of diplomacy, now roared with panic and speculation. The representatives of 100 species debated, argued, and shouted over one another. "This is a hoax," declared High Speaker Vereth of the Selvar Dominion. "Humans are extinct. This signal is nothing more than a fabrication, a desperate attempt to stir fear." Fabrication, scoffed Admiral Thren of the Krell Confederacy. "One of our probes was erased the moment it approached that ship. Not destroyed. Erased. No wreckage, no energy signature, nothing left behind. Do you call that a hoax?" The chamber fell silent. The Council had long feared the humans, not for their power, but for their persistence. They had been primitive compared to the Dominion when war broke out 1,000 years ago, yet they fought with a ferocity no other species could match. When the Selvar crushed their fleets, they built new ones. When their planets fell, they fought from the ruins. Even as their homeworld burned, they refused to surrender. Now, against all logic, they had returned. The Selvar Dominion could not afford to ignore this. Supreme Warlord Malzik, ruler of the Dominion, ordered an immediate response. A fleet of fast attack ships was dispatched to investigate the source of the signal. Their mission was simple: confirm the truth, eliminate any human presence, and end this foolish rumor before it could spread further. It would be a mistake. The Selvar warships cut through the void, approaching the dead system where the signal had originated. Their sensors detected nothing but a single drifting structure, a massive, dark monolith floating in the cold abyss. It had no visible engines, no life signs, and no transmissions. The fleet commander, General Vexar, sneered. A relic, a trap left behind to cause panic. He ordered his ships to destroy it. The first Selvar destroyer locked weapons and fired. A barrage of energy blasts surged toward the monolith, only to freeze mid-flight, as if space itself had turned against them. The energy crackled, twisted, and then reversed course. In an instant, the Selvar ship was vaporized by its own weapons. Alarms blared across the fleet. The monolith began to shift, its black surface rippling like liquid metal. Then, from the darkness, they appeared. Sleek, angular warships materialized from the void, their hulls unlike anything seen before. They did not emit energy signatures. They did not communicate. They simply moved. The Selvar fleet panicked. They tried to retreat, but it was too late. The human ship struck with surgical precision, their weapons bypassing shields as if they didn't exist. One by one, the Selvar ships vanished. No wreckage, no escape pods, no distress calls. In less than a minute, the entire fleet was gone. Only one ship remained, a single scout vessel, left untouched. Its communication system flickered to life. A message played, broadcasted across every channel in the Selvar Dominion. We remember. The lone Selvar ship jumped to hyperspace, racing back to warn its leaders. The war that the galaxy thought had ended was about to begin again. And this time, humanity was the predator. The lone Selvar scout ship emerged from hyperspace, its hull scorched, its crew silent with terror. They had seen something that should not exist. Ships that moved like shadows, weapons that defied physics, an enemy that had returned from extinction. The transmission they carried spread like wildfire. Within hours, the entire Selvar Dominion knew the truth. Humanity was back. Panic swept through the Dominion's ruling elite. Some refused to believe it, calling it an elaborate trick, a deception by rival factions. But the military knew better. The footage captured by the surviving scout ship showed what the galaxy had feared for centuries. Human ships, human weapons, human vengeance. Supreme Warlord Malzik did not hesitate. He mobilized the Dominion's Third Armada, a fleet of over 200 warships, each bristling with the most advanced weaponry the Dominion possessed. Their mission was clear: find the humans, destroy them, erase them for good. The Third Armada arrived at the dead system within hours. The wreckage of their previous fleet was nowhere to be found. Not even debris remained. It was as if the ships had never existed. A deep, unsettling silence filled the void. "Scan the system," Admiral Vaker ordered. "Find them." Sensors swept the empty space, searching for any sign of human presence. At first, they detected nothing. Then, faint distortions, small gravitational anomalies, moving unnaturally, closing in fast. And then they appeared. The human fleet did not arrive through hyperspace. They simply faded into existence, like phantoms stepping from the shadows. Their ships were larger than before, their hulls seamless and smooth, without markings or visible weapons. And yet, the moment they appeared, every Dominion ship's sensors went dark. Admiral Vaker barely had time to react before the first attack struck. Selvar warships exploded in eerie silence, their shields useless, their hulls splitting apart as if reality itself had turned against them. The humans did not fire energy weapons or launch missiles. Their ships moved through the Dominion's fleet, and wherever they passed, Selvar ships simply ceased to exist. Vaker's flagship trembled as something unseen passed through it. Not an explosion, not a collision, but an absence of matter. The Admiral turned to his crew, his mouth opening to give an order. But there was no one left to hear it. His crew had vanished. Their uniforms remained. Their bodies did not. A hollow voice filled the bridge, echoing from every screen, every speaker. "You thought we were gone." Vaker's vision blurred. His body felt weightless, his mind sinking into an endless void. "We learned. We adapted. We ascended." The last thing Admiral Vaker saw before his flagship disintegrated was the cold, unblinking glow of human ships watching. The Third Armada was gone, And the rest of the galaxy was about to learn the truth. Humanity had not just survived. They had become something more. The Galactic Council chamber was silent. Not the silence of peace, but the silence of dread. Every representative had seen the footage. That Selvar Dominion's Third Armada, 200 warships, each armed with the most advanced weaponry in known space, had simply vanished. There had been no battle, no prolonged engagement. The human fleet had appeared, and within minutes, the Dominion's mightiest force was gone. No wreckage, no distress calls, just absence. And now, humanity was coming. The council chamber trembled as a new arrival approached the station. A single human ship, black as the void, moving with impossible precision. It did not request permission to dock. It did not slow. It simply was. The station's defense systems should have activated. Instead, they flickered and died. Every energy source, every weapon, every shield generator simply shut down. The station, the most secure diplomatic hub in the galaxy, was now defenseless. The doors to the chamber opened. A figure stepped inside. He looked human, but there was something wrong. His features were too perfect, his skin flawless, his posture unnaturally still. He wore no armor, carried no weapons, yet every being in the room felt an overwhelming presence radiating from him. He stopped at the center of the chamber, his gaze sweeping across the assembled leaders of the galaxy. Then he spoke. The war never ended. His voice was calm, too calm. It carried no anger, no arrogance, only a simple, irrefutable truth. High Speaker Vereth of the Selvar Dominion rose to his feet. His species had ruled through fear for millennia. But now his voice trembled. "This is madness," he said. "Humanity was destroyed. Your worlds were burned. Your fleets were annihilated." The human envoy turned his gaze toward the Selvar leader. "We remember." Vereth swallowed hard. "How?" he whispered. "How did you survive?" For the first time, the human smiled. It was not a pleasant expression. It was cold, calculating. "We did not survive," he said. "We became something more." The chamber fell into stunned silence. The council members looked at one another, each of them realizing the same thing. This was not the same humanity that had fought and died 1,000 years ago. This was not the desperate species that had resisted until the bitter end. This was something else. Something new. The human envoy took another step forward. "The galaxy abandoned us. You erased us from history. You thought we were gone." His voice dropped to a whisper. "Now, you will remember." The lights flickered. A deep, unnatural hum filled the air. And in that moment, every leader in the galaxy understood. The lost had returned, and they had come to reshape the future. Supreme Warlord Malzik of the Selvar Dominion watched the reports flood in, his clawed fingers digging into the armrests of his throne. His fleets were gone. Entire battle groups had vanished without a trace. Communications from the outer colonies had gone silent. The Dominion's most fortified worlds, planets that had stood unconquered for millennia, were now isolated. And the worst part, there was no war. No great space battles. No drawn-out sieges. The humans did not fight like before. They did not march in with legions, did not announce their conquests. They simply took. One moment, a planet belonged to the Selvar Dominion. The next, it was silent. Malzik snarled. He would not fall to ghosts. He slammed his fist onto the war table, sending holograms flickering. "Mobilize every remaining fleet, every warship, every soldier." His commanders hesitated. He bared his fangs. "Do it." The order was sent. Across the Dominion, warships roared to life. Armies were roused. Defenses were reinforced. The Dominion would make its last stand. Then the lights in the war room dimmed. Malzik's breath caught in his throat. The holograms flickered, then twisted, shifting into something else. A face. Human. It was the same envoy who had appeared before the Galactic Council, but this time his eyes glowed with an eerie, unnatural light. He did not move. He did not speak. Then the words appeared. Not spoken, not transmitted. They simply materialized across every screen, every display, every communication system in the Dominion. You ruled through fear. Melzik took a step back. You conquered, enslaved, and burned. The Dominion's generals looked around in panic, their weapons drawn. But against what? Now you will know what it means to be powerless. The capital world trembled. Alarms blared across the city. Power grids failed in perfect synchrony. The sky darkened, not from storm clouds, but from the sheer mass of human ships descending. The city's defenses activated, but they refused to fire. Every turret, every missile launcher, every planetary shield shut down. Not jammed, not hacked. They simply ceased to exist. Melzik turned to flee, but the shadows around him twisted. And then they stepped through. Humans. Not in power armor, not carrying weapons. They walked as if reality itself bent to their will. Silent, unstoppable, unbound. Melzik snarled and lunged, his claws aiming for the closest one. He passed through empty air. The humans were not there. And yet, he felt their presence. He felt his own existence unraveling. You ended our world. Melzik's vision blurred. His body felt distant. Now, your dominion ends. The supreme warlord of the Selvar Dominion had no time to scream. Because in the end, he was never there at all. The Selvar Dominion, once the most feared empire in the galaxy, was gone. Not destroyed. Not conquered in the traditional sense. Erased. Their fleets had vanished. Their armies had disappeared. Their leaders were simply gone. No wreckage, no bodies, no distress calls. Entire planets, once filled with billions of Selvar citizens, now stood eerily empty. The galaxy watched in silent horror. This was not war. This was something else. The other great civilizations, empires that had ruled for millennia, scrambled to respond. They strengthened their borders, reinforced their defenses, tried to make sense of what was happening. But it did not matter. The humans were not bound by borders. They did not invade. They did not demand surrender. They arrived. And when they did, reality itself seemed to bend. On the core worlds of the Krell Confederacy, entire cities woke up to find everything different. Streets were in new places. Buildings had shifted. People who had lived there for generations no longer existed. Their names erased from records, their presence erased from memory. It was as if they had never been. The Thalric hegemony tried to resist. They launched a desperate strike against a human-controlled system, sending an entire fleet of warships. They arrived at their destination and found nothing. The star itself was gone, not destroyed, not collapsed into a black hole, just missing. The fleet, now stranded in the void, tried to retreat, only to find their own homeworld no longer existed. The Thalric hegemony ceased to be. The galaxy could no longer deny the truth. This was not humanity as they had once known it. This was not a war they could fight. The humans had changed. They had become something beyond ships, beyond weapons, beyond flesh and blood. And they were rewriting reality itself. The Galactic Council convened for the last time. The chamber, once a place of power and diplomacy, now felt like a tomb. The remaining empires sent their highest leaders, not to debate, not to negotiate, but to beg. The human envoy stood in the center of the chamber, the same perfect, motionless figure. His gaze held no malice, no hatred, only inevitability. High Speaker Ralvik of the Urshan Collective stepped forward, trembling. "What do you want?" he whispered. The human's expression did not change. Balance. Ralvik clenched his fists. "You're erasing us." The human tilted his head slightly. "No, we are correcting." A slow realization spread through the council. The humans were not acting out of vengeance, not seeking conquest. They were remaking the galaxy itself, removing the corrupt, eliminating the cruel, unraveling the mistakes of history, and nothing could stop them. The galaxy held its breath. The great empires that had once ruled through war and oppression were gone, not destroyed in battle, not conquered through diplomacy, erased. The Selvar dominion had fallen first, then the Thalric hegemony. The Krell Confederacy followed soon after. One by one, the most powerful civilizations in existence simply ceased to be. No wreckage, no graves, only silence. And in that silence, the remaining species realized a terrible truth. The humans were not merely taking revenge. They were reshaping the galaxy itself. On the former homeworlds of the fallen empires, strange things began to happen. Cities that had once been towering monuments to conquest were now covered in lush greenery, as if nature had reclaimed them overnight. Oceans, once polluted by war industries, became pristine and teeming with life. But it was not just the environment that had changed. New settlements appeared, places that had never existed before. Small towns, villages, entire civilizations that had no record of ever being part of the galaxy's past. Yet the people there lived as if they had always been. Some were humans. Others were species that had vanished long ago, their worlds lost to war, their histories erased by conquest. Now they walked the streets, speaking languages no one remembered, practicing cultures that should have been extinct. It was as if humanity had reached into the fabric of time itself and rewritten reality. The remaining civilizations watched in fear. The humans did not send diplomats. They did not ask for alliances. They did not demand tribute. They simply continued. In the depths of space, on the last stronghold of the once mighty Selvar dominion, a single ship arrived. It was not a warship. It bore no weapons. It was a seed. The structure descended onto the barren world, embedding itself into the cracked surface. Within moments, it began to expand, its metallic form pulsing with an eerie organic glow. And then life began. Grass sprouted from the dead soil. Rivers formed where there had been none. The air grew thick with oxygen, rich and pure. Within days, the planet, once scared by war, had become a paradise. And in that paradise, the first settlers arrived. Not conquerors, not soldiers, but children, born of every species that had once suffered under the Dominion's rule. They did not know war. They did not fear the past, because the past no longer existed. The remaining galactic leaders gathered one last time, not in fear, not to beg, but to understand. "What are they doing?" High Speaker Ralvik whispered. No one had an answer. But deep down, they all felt the same realization creeping into their minds. The humans were not destroying the galaxy. They were rebuilding it, and no one knew what the final shape would be. The galaxy had changed, not through war, not through treaties or diplomacy, through something beyond understanding. Where once there were empires, now there was balance. The scars of conquest had been wiped away, not by force, but by a force deeper than any weapon. Worlds that had been burned to ash were green again. Cities that had been strongholds of oppression had become places of peace. And yet, no one could explain how. There had been no armies, no invasions. The humans had simply arrived, and reality had bent to their will. On the former capital world of the Galactic Council, the last remaining rulers gathered. They were no longer leaders of mighty empires. There were no empires left. They were simply those who had survived. They had expected the humans to rule, to take power for themselves. But that was not what happened. The humans did not declare dominion over the galaxy. They did not name a ruler, did not set laws. They simply watched. And wherever their gaze fell, reality shifted. A world that had known only war would awaken to find its weapons gone, its people living in peace. A civilization built on slavery would discover that its history had been rewritten, its people now equals, its chains nothing more than forgotten memories. It was not control. It was correction. The past itself had been rewritten, and those who remained had only one question. Why? The human envoy stood before them once more, the same figure, the same stillness. His presence was no longer terrifying. It was simply absolute. High Speaker Ralvik stepped forward. He no longer wore the robes of a ruler. There were no rulers anymore. "What have you done?" he asked. "What have you become?" The human met his gaze. There was no pride in his expression, no arrogance, only certainty. "We are what you made us." Ralvik swallowed. "And what is that?" The human smiled. The answer. A deep silence fell over the chamber. And in that silence, the galaxy finally understood. Humanity had not won a war. They had become the architects of reality itself. The future would not be written by conquest, not by greed, not by cruelty. It would be shaped by something far greater. Balance. A galaxy without war, without suffering, without fear. And as the last of the old rulers looked upon the humans, upon the silent, watching force that had reshaped existence itself, they knew one thing for certain. The universe had thought humanity was extinct, but humanity had never left. They had simply been waiting. And now, they had returned to set things right. Forever.